20 years since our director, Reverend Phyllis Sorter, arrived in Nigeria as a Free Methodist missionary. She was advised by a pastor in Nigeria. Surendra, you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. That's Phyllis. She was advised by a pastor in Nigeria to stay away from the Fulani people, but she didn't. The Lord really led her to love the Fulani people, and she made relationships and close friendships with the Fulani. They are lovely and worthy to be loved. And so it's our desire for the Fulani people to come to know Christ. And so all of our projects and goals are in that aim. Over the years and through Phyllis's friendships and relationships, Schools for Africa has developed schools, healthcare clinics, and grazing reserves with the Fulani people. Phyllis loves to tell this story. I think you saw that picture of the pot. Imagine a three-legged cooking pot and the good life simmering within. And this pot requires all three legs to stand. So if Fulani nomadic herdsmen are to experience the good life in Nigeria, three things are needed: a strong economy based on education, healthy families with access to healthcare, and a thriving environment through grazing reserves. So through education, healthy families, and grazing reserves, Schools for Africa is literally changing the social fabric of the Fulani people in Nigeria, and they embrace this change. So fathers are so proud to send their children to school for the very first time. Pregnant mothers and babies receive excellent health care, and struggling through the second worst mother-baby mortality rate in the world in Nigeria. So love to build healthcare clinics. And through grazing reserves, shepherds can safely graze their cattle in one place, so not having to roam and continue to be nomadic. And as shepherds stay in one place, there will be peace between Fulani people and other tribes in Nigeria as these land conflicts decline. And this is answering one of Nigeria's deadliest challenges right now. So next, I'm so excited to get to share this film with you. Kidnapped Redemption won awards at film festivals all over the nation this year, and was even screened in Australia and Canada last month. So it's beautiful. It was produced by a pastor in Wenatchee, who's a close friend and partner of Phyllis's and our ministry, Schools for Africa. The story, as you'll see, is about when Phyllis was kidnapped in Nigeria in 2015 and held in the bush for 12 days. And she was finally released, but her story didn't end. So despite the trauma and terror that she lived through, the Lord allowed her to return to Nigeria and continue to minister to the Fulani people. So since then, Schools for Africa has been blessed mightily in Nigeria, and Phyllis has won the favor of shepherds and farmers and bankers and teachers, and all the way up to government agencies and even the president of Nigeria, who is a Fulani man himself. So we're going to talk more after we share the film, but think of any questions that you might have as we watch, and we'll have a time of Q&A after the film. So let's watch that together now.
The thing that struck me is your story comes at this struggle for change in the community, and that change is hard for people everywhere.
Well, the first thing that pops into my mind is that yes, change is hard. And I came in with an idea of rotational grazing for the Fulani. I came in with the idea of education for Fulani children. But here's the thing. All of the Fulani that I have met in many different corners of Nigeria have embraced that change. And so this kidnapping, it's not a general feeling that we don't want change and let's get rid of this woman and her projects. No, this was an evil man who did not want the Fulani children and the Fulani families to enjoy an education.
No problem for the water. We don't have problem.
So you've brought us here to this school, Hope Academy, where you were kidnapped. What happened that morning? What were you doing?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've been very much involved with opening grazing reserves in Nigeria. I've been working with Governor Wada here in Lokoja, in Kogi State, on opening a grazing reserve. But we only had 100 hectares of land. And so I had gone and requested that the governor help us with 900 additional hectares, and he agreed. And Janet and Jacob and I were standing in the shade of the trees close to the church here, and just so happy, talking, without a worry in the world. We were just thrilled. It was like the pinnacle of success for us that we were getting this extra land. So all of a sudden, as we were standing there talking, I heard gunshots and I saw men running toward me. And I just sort of froze. And they began to drag me over toward the wall. The man who was on the right-hand side struck me hard across the face. He said to me, "This is the day that you're going to die." And they threw me over the wall. And we walked and walked and we walked, and they were pushing me and pulling me. I couldn't actually comprehend what was happening. I felt this terrible despair. Oh God, save me. I just kept saying, save me, save me. At a certain point in time, they gave me a little sip of water from one of their water bottles. And during that interval, I turned to the man on my right, who appeared to be the leader of this gang. And I said to him, "What's your name?" And he answered me, he said, "I'm Alhaji Ismaila." And I said to him, "I'm Reverend Phyllis." And something happened in that moment that we connected. And then he looked down and saw that I was short one shoe. And he took off one of his sandals and put it on my foot. And then we continued to walk. I was born and raised in Mozambique on a remote mission station called Inyamashapu. And it was just myself and my two sisters on that station that were white children. We grew up with African children. The time that I was growing up, Mozambique was a Portuguese colony, and there were very strict rules on how white missionaries could behave. They weren't allowed to have any Black people in their house unless they were servants. So I grew up with these African children, but with a horrible sense of injustice. It wasn't fair. I can remember so many times, telling my mom and dad, "This isn't fair. It's not right." And they would say, "We don't like it either, but there's nothing we can do about it. If we want to stay in Mozambique, we have to follow the rules." So when I finished the 8th grade, I was sent to Johannesburg to live with a missionary family and go to a local public school. This was at the height of apartheid. Segregation was the rule of the day. The school was only white children. I witnessed things as a 12-year-old girl that I should never, ever have seen, things that are still with me today. I saw men being beaten and thrown into the street. I witnessed a woman being raped. Well, one day by chance, I met a young girl my age who was the daughter of a cook. And one day she invited me to her house. And very many times, 2 or 3 times a week, we would ride our bikes to her house. I felt more comfortable at her house than I did where I was living with this missionary family. Well, unfortunately, it was discovered one day that I was hanging out with this Black child, and that was against the rules. And so I was sent immediately to a boarding school in Zimbabwe. So that was my life growing up. And that sense of injustice and the fact that why are we as white people better than people with brown skin or black skin? It just wasn't right. It didn't feel right. And so I've always had this desire to help people who have been pushed away, people who have been maltreated. I've had that strong desire, and just it's the way I grew up, and I was just shaped this way. So when I came to Nigeria and I met the Fulani, I'll never forget the day that cattle drive came through the village. And these beautiful Fulani people were following the cattle. I was standing by a Nigerian man, and I asked him, I said, who are these beautiful people? I've never seen these people before. And he looked at me and he said, oh, forget about them. Those are the Fulani. They bring their cows down here into our state. They spoil our crops. These people live in the bush with their animals. They're dirty. They're dangerous. They don't even speak our language. And they're Muslims. Whatever you do, stay away from them. And I knew at that moment that I needed to come close to the Fulani. Because in that moment, I felt the same indignation that I had felt as a child when I was told by my parents, you cannot bring these children into our house because their skin is a different color than ours.
We Fulani, we pity cow, we love cow. After our life is cow, important for us. Number one, you feed your children, you feed your brothers, you marry, you do everything is cow do for you, and cow give you milk, you take milk, take everything you want, sell it, buy clothes. If God no one Fulani cry for hungry. God no one Fulani cry for where they living. Any place their cows sleep, Fulani can go sleep, enjoy. Now he make we nothing we like to promote us near cow.
You see, the Fulani are very traditional people. They tend to follow the vegetation, and in the process, the cattle destroy people's farmlands and their produce. It's unintentionally, because cattle they just move. They don't care whether it's yams or cassava or corn. They destroy it. For them, it's food. So, and this brought a lot of conflict between farmers and the Fulani cattle rearers.
Okay, somebody no come near, no know us. He say we a bat. Why? Now him them fear the thing they no see. They fear the thing they don't know. And Phyllis go in, know the truth, see, sleep for inside bush with yours. We did together with you. We chop together, we drink together. I think we follow like this.
And the Fulani have been controlled by other tribes for a long time. It's time for that to stop. It's time for the Fulani children to have a chance. So I think the Fulani need a champion. Mogodi is their champion. A champion is somebody who stands up for the right of other people. You are standing up for the rights of your people, and I will join you in that. I will stand up for the rights of the Fulani.
Now, the time come, every place in a city, every place in a farm. Now we want a change. How we get a grazing area, how we get a bush, the place we pass with our cow. We stay one place, how our children educate, we like it.
You can turn away. You can say, no, God, that's not interesting to me. I don't want to do that. Or you can say, sure, I'm willing to do it and go that path. There was no hesitation for me. I mean, I knew that this was something that I could do with Mogodi. And that's why we just went and did it. Our whole purpose in this was to find a way to have peace between the herdsmen and the farmers. How to achieve that peace. When you have C and H together, it makes sense. So in our schools, we have farmers' children and Fulani children sitting together, eating together, playing together, learning together. Because our hope is that as they grow up and become adults, that this sense of togetherness will continue. We're all equal. We're all human beings together in God's country here.
Kawai shi kenan sai nan mai waya in ni rajo annotiya sai o wi'am bibi o ko boyanton sai o wi ɓe nangi Filis ɗum waɗi kidnapping Filis woɓɓe gari kocci Filis sai de nammi bo no narrumi mayde matujo annona daga ɗon ummoyimi mi daraki daga ɗon darnde kam wala to am daga ton ummoyimi hammi ɗon daga Bayelsa. It
was shocking. How can such a good person be kidnapped? I mean, she's there, she's helping people, she's sacrificing her comfort, sacrificing her time and energy and ideas to help our people. How will any human being go and kidnap her?
10 years since I know Phyllis, he might. How he loved my people, he loved Fulani, he loved people for every place. No anybody I love like I love Fulani. Now I tell you, after my father, my mother is Phyllis.
It was a moment of confusion. People are crying. And all I know, the Bible says, call upon me in the time of trouble, and I will deliver you. We have to go back to God immediately.
And sorry, we have one particular hymn we're singing often and often that period. I must tell Jesus all my trials. Jesus alone, Jesus alone can help me. That was the only hymn we're singing all the time. And each time we come together, we sing the hymn and we began to cry unto God that He can deliver us. I must tell Jesus, so that's the Jesus. I cannot bear my burdens alone. I must tell Jesus. I must tell Jesus. Jesus can help me. Jesus alone. Amen.
it was about 6 o'clock in the evening as the sun was going down that we finally began to stop. And I stumbled and tripped and I fell. And I fell inside down this little hill into the ravine. And I landed on my face. And they said, you can rest there. And so it was like I was so stressed out that I threw up. And I just lay there with my face in my vomit and in the dirt. And I've never felt such despair. I could see myself as my kidnappers saw me, wretched, despicable, a victim. And it struck me then that if I ever wanted to get through this thing alive, I was going to have to take control of myself. I couldn't allow myself to have this mentality of being a victim. And so at that moment, I sat up and I was wearing a scarf. So I took the scarf and I cleaned my face as best I could, found a place to sit down on a rock. And I waited there to have the kidnappers come and talk to me. I was sitting there for a long time. Nobody came. It was very quiet in the bush. And it was so quiet, I thought, maybe the kidnappers have left. I'm here alone. I'd be a fool not to try to escape. And so I stood up really slowly, and I started walking toward the right, and immediately the kidnappers just appeared. So that's when Ismaila stood over me, and he was just standing there and looking around. And I said, Ismaila, what's the plan? What's the plan now? And he said, somebody has hired us to kidnap and kill you. So I talked to Ismaila. I said, Ismaila, you don't want to kill me. I said, I'm an old woman, probably the age of your mother. Would you like it if somebody kidnapped your mother? Would you be happy if somebody killed your mother? He said, no, I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't like that. I said, are you married? He said, yes. I said, one wife or two? And he laughed, and I laughed. He said, one wife only, one wife is all I can handle. And then he kind of pulled himself together and he said, you are the age of my mom. He said, if you were a man, I could kill you, but you are the age of my mom. And so I want to promise you, I will not touch you, and I will not allow my men to touch you. And tomorrow I will take you home. And from that time on, he started to call me mommy. He called me mommy the whole time. It was around 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning. And Ismaila, he struck the ground 4 times with his hand. And it was apparently some kind of signal, because all of the kidnappers started to move around and sit up, and they were rubbing their eyes. And I sat up too. And then Ismaila came over and he said, get up, we're going now. So I said, Ismaila, are you taking me home now? He said, yes, I'm taking you home. I was so naive. I actually believed him that he was going to take me back. We walked down the ravine and came to that sandy patch where I was hoping to get water. I was so thirsty. We walked a little farther and he said, I'm going to dig here for water. But they only let me take about 2 handfuls of water myself. They wouldn't give me any more than that. And we drove for a little ways, and there was a path. And I had this great surge of hope that we were going back to Emiworo. But after a certain point, the driver turned around and went back and went into the bushes and into the wilderness. And eventually, we entered this clearing, and the smell of blood assailed me at that moment. My spirit just told me, this is a bad place. I was shaking, trembling, and it was a situation that was out of my control. All I could think about is, this is not right. To die at the hands of a witch doctor who's going to use her body parts to make medicine for the evil one. If I die, I should die to honor Jesus. Suddenly, one of the little boys stood up and he came over to us, and he had a long knife in his hand. And he handed it over to Ismaila. He said, Ismaila, see the knife. And Ismaila wouldn't touch it. He said, put it down. And I realized that Ismaila was supposed to use that knife to kill me. But I didn't want to die. So I looked at Ismaila and I said, Ismaila, I know you don't want to kill me. Well, he wouldn't look at me. He just kept looking out, into the distance. I knew that he was ashamed. And I said, Ismaila, I think that this witch doctor is going to pay you for my body, correct? My family, my people will pay you more for me alive than this witch doctor would pay for me dead. And his face just brightened up. It was like, wow, there's a solution. We traveled again many kilometers, and every so often the kidnappers would stop and look for a cell phone network. So we would keep going. They would stop. They would climb up on top of a hill. They would try to find network. No network. Come down. Keep going. Finally, they found a place where there was some cell phone coverage. And the first thing Ismaila did was he took my cell phone and brought it over to me. And he said, I want you to call somebody about the ransom. And so I scrolled through the contacts and I thought, let me call Janet Andiaba, because she always has phones in her hand or in her bag.
That's true. That's true.
But even before I could touch your number, Ismaila stopped me and he said, don't tell anybody where we are. If you have to tell people that we are calling from town, we're not calling from bush. If you tell people that you are calling them from the bush, very bad things will happen to you. You hear me? You get me? I said, I hear you, I get you.
So it was when I heard your voice. I screamed from here, and a lot of crowd of people were there. So it was then, what happened? What happened? And Anna started telling them, she's alive. She has called me. She's alive. She has called.
The pressure was on to make the phone calls to get money for my ransom. But time went by and no answers came. All of them were just coming at me. Money, money, money. That's what they wanted. And I felt really, really scared and really alone out there. I didn't know what to do.
The B share the B me to pull and you share the gala. Wala no dum hebirade daga ha Allah wadi be gadi kidnapping Phyllis joni wala no dum hebrate to wara dum sora wuro ango nyibum dum sora na'i an di gommi dum hauta chede be dum yaga Allah dum belo Phyllis dum yoka Phyllis e bawa e bi wuro ya garu mi makaranta no jetti mi makaranta ta garmi tawmi mi dari tan ha SS hay ta tan dai ko sai group ko be jetti be nan here saya waɗi ka yeynu goyan ko annduɗa to kidnapping Phyllis mbimi Phyllis no nanaymi madujo an non nanaymi o wi to cikke nan to ya muñi mi wara dara o waɗani an tambayoyiji fu o nanayi o go'ota mi anda imɓe bimo o nangaya daga ɗo wiya to waɗaniñal misalin karfe 7 sai wuyar bi daga an haja mun gawa sai ko kudanan mi soma sho ito yimi bi mi to joni sai no e wata dum heba yi a Phyllis.
We had the police, the state security, we had the army, we had civil defense, and all of us were coordinating to ensure that she didn't come to harm.
On that day in the afternoon, Ismaila got a phone call. And I could tell that he was trying to talk to the person, but having difficulty understanding him. So Ismaila brought the phone over to me and gave me the phone. So I said, hello. And a man answered and said, hello, is this Phyllis? I said, yes, this is Phyllis. And I said, who is this? He said, my name is Robert, and I have a message for you. We want to tell you that thousands of people are praying for you around the world. Robert told Ismaila that money would come, but it wasn't all going to come at once because the Nigerian government would confiscate any money that came that they thought would be given to terrorists. Every day, Robert would call and he would say, this is how much money we have now. Would your Olga accept it? And Ismaila would go and call his Olga, and the Olga would not accept it. It was pretty frightening. Money, money, money. I tried to explain to Ismaila, it's only been 1 week, and the money is coming little by little by little. You have to be patient. Monday afternoon, Ismaila came down. He had a bowl of rice. And I told him, I can't eat. I was just feeling sick to my stomach of fear. And he said, no, Mommy, you have to eat. And I said, I just can't eat this. He said, Mommy, at least 3 bites. Take 3 bites. And he watched me while I took 3 bites of rice. And then as we were sitting there, all of a sudden, into the clearing came a group of men who had never been there before. And I knew that these were Olga's boys that were coming to settle me. We just sat there on the ground and watched them. One of them came over to where we were. And he sat down right next to me, right between me and Ismaila. And he was wearing a gas mask. He was a very frightening looking guy. And he opened his mouth, and the first thing he said was, have you had your dinner? So I kind of smiled and I said, yes, I've eaten, thank you. And we just went on and had a discussion. He went to the point of, in Nigeria, there's no jobs, no work for anyone, no work, no jobs. And he was complaining and going on and on. And I said that once this whole ordeal was over, if he was interested, that I would be happy to have him come and work with me. I would give him work to do. And all of a sudden, he just burst into tears. And then he started to say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for the things that I've done. Please forgive me. And I said, I forgive you. And God forgives you too. And I reached out and held his hand and I prayed for him that God would forgive him and that he would, take a different path in his life. And after a while, he got up and he went back into the bushes behind me, and I could hear him blowing his nose and wiping his face. The next day was Wednesday, and the Olga accepted the amount of ransom that was offered to him. The hours went by and nobody came. Nobody came all day long. Until around 5 o'clock in the evening, Ismaila came running down the trail. Snake and the other kidnappers had reached the place where they were going to do the exchange. And that was when I realized that they were not going to exchange me at all. And I was here. So Snake told Ismaila where they were waiting for the money. And I knew the place. I told him to go down toward Ajakuta, to do the second roundabout, to go through the village, past the market, and up into these unoccupied houses. Robert said, I'm not comfortable with this. It's getting dark. And so I told that to Ismaila. And Ismaila agreed with Robert. And I could hear Snake shouting on the phone. I could tell that he was not happy about this. Snake was just the worst. He never wore a shirt. He had a black raincoat that he wore, and he had knives in his belt. All of a sudden, there was Snake and his men, and Snake was saying, "You made us suffer. You made us walk all that way for nothing. Now we're going to make you suffer." And I was pulling myself back in the rock and trying to protect myself. And all of a sudden, Ismaila was there. And he came and stood between me and Snake. And he said, "Stand up, mommy." So I stood up again behind Ismaila. And all of a sudden, as I was standing behind Ismaila, another second man came and stood shoulder to shoulder with Ismaila, protecting me against Snake. And it was Gas Mask Guy. As it was getting light, Snake and his men got up and took off into the bush to the second location. So we waited. Then the phone rang again, and it was Robert. "Don't panic, Phyllis, but I have very bad news for you." And he said, "Police have shown up. They're surrounding the van." In the meantime, Snake had phoned Ismaila, and he was screaming at Ismaila that they had been lured into a trap and that Ismaila should kill me and just get it over with. So Robert called the FBI. The FBI called the U.S. Embassy in Abuja. The U.S. Embassy called the chief of police, who called his men who were around the van and told them to leave. And they left. And before you know it, we got another phone call from Snake, and Ismaila's face just broke into this big smile. And he said, "We've got the money, we've got the money." And oh, I can't tell you of the great relief that we all felt. It was amazing.
For somebody to be tortured, for somebody to be kidnapped, for somebody to spend 12 days in the bush. Hallelujah! This is the moment we are celebrating.
It's very hard for me to stand here and talk to you without wanting to weep. I cannot forget the day when the kidnappers dropped me down that road. And I stood there and I just said, "God help me. What do I do? What do I do?" Because I was afraid that anybody I might approach could be somebody who would harm me even more. And then suddenly, in the distance, I saw a man walking toward me, and he was pushing a wheelbarrow, and there were two small children by his side. So I thought to myself, here is somebody who's a family man. Surely he won't hurt me. And so I went up to the man, and I said, "Please, can you show me the way to the main road?" So the man looked at me, and suddenly he had a big smile on his face, and he reached out and he grabbed my hand and he said, "Congratulations, congratulations, I recognize you. We've been praying for you at my church." He said, "My name is Brother Moses, and I am the usher at the Redeemed Christian Church of God." He said, come with me, I will take you to our church." And I began to cry like a baby. I was just crying and crying and crying. When the FBI was taking me out of Nigeria to fly me back to Seattle, they took me through the airport in Abuja. We didn't have to wait for any, red tape or tickets or anything. We just marched through the airport with FBI agents on either side. And as we walked along, one Muslim man saw us and came over to me. And he said, "I just want you to know that when you were kidnapped, my mosque, we prayed for you while you were kidnapped. I just want you to know. And I thanked him. And it really, really touched me. When I went back and I was so scared, I prayed to God, Lord, I said, I want to go back to Nigeria, but I'm afraid. And I began writing the story. And I got to the point of the story where the kidnappers took me to the witch doctor's den. And boy, I just fell apart. You know? It was like a huge boulder was just in my chest and in my stomach. I couldn't hardly breathe or eat. The fear and the anxiety just overtook me. And I couldn't sleep at night. It was horrible. And that Easter Sunday morning, there was a television in my room. I turned it on, and there was a Easter Sunday morning service in an African American church, and the choir was singing. I just connected with them immediately. And then the pastor came and began to preach. And he preached about the women who were walking on Easter Sunday morning to Jesus' tomb. And they were talking among themselves, saying, we want to put lotions on Jesus' body, but who will roll away the stone so that we can enter the tomb? And the whole message of the pastor that day was, whatever stone you have in your life that's blocking your joy, or blocking your ministry, your purpose in life, God will roll away that stone. Just ask him. God will roll away the stone. And I knew that God was speaking to me because I had that huge stone that was stopping my joy and blocking my purpose here in Nigeria. And I knew God was talking to me, and I was just so excited and happy. I just put my hands up, and I was just praising God. And that stone rolled away. And I came back.
Schools for Africa, Bobby Grazing Reserve, Mariga Local Government Area, Niger State. Director Schools for Africa, Reverend Philly Soto. Distinguished guests, able teachers, and my four pupils of Schools for Africa. A very good time to everyone present here. My name is Bello Bello from Primary 2. It is an honor to welcome.
I mean, 95% of the people I know would have packed their bags and left Nigeria. But she refused. She said, look, I have a vision. I know I'm making a positive impact on people's life. I'm saved. And so when you are seeing such impact of your work, I understand why she stayed. But abandoning the benefit to others from the work she's doing is what she couldn't live with.
Thank you and thank you all. God bless Schools for Africa. God bless Niger State, and God bless Federal Republic of Nigeria.
I learn many things. You trust God because Phyllis trusts God, only God. I learned this one from Phyllis because he tell me that I see she kidnap, go for him place, come back for that place, the same place he kidnap. He say no problem. He can do the work. He say he do. I don't learn. Thank you.
So can you tell me one more time why you wanted to have a film made of this story?
I want to encourage people. I think it's an important story for people to hear, because surely things will happen in their lives too. But it shouldn't be the end for them. It should just maybe be a little bump in the road. You know, they get through it and they keep going forward. I am a happy person now because I came back. I cannot even tell you how happy I am. I love being here. Right here is where I was kidnapped. Right here is where gunshots rang out and men in hoods came over and grabbed me and took me and threw me over the wall. But I can stand here and I just feel happy, you know. This is my place. I'm supposed to be here. I know that. And that's the story that people need to hear. You know, it took me some time to get the courage to even get the phone numbers that Robert had used. I called and called and called. Nobody answered. But one day I got a phone call back from that number, and it was Ismaila. And when he answered the phone, I said, "Is this Ismaila?" He said, "I'm the one." I said, "This is Mommy." And I said, "Ismaila, I'm calling to say thank you to you for being kind to me in the bush and for not allowing anyone to hurt me." And I said to him also, "I want to say that I forgive you for all the bad things that happened." And so he said to me, "I love you, Mommy." I said, "I love you too, Ismaila."
amazing, huh? So that film took years to produce. So we don't have a model for child sponsorship anymore. We have more a model of partnering churches and people with schools. So we're committed to updating churches and folks who support schools, but we don't do a child sponsorship model anymore, just because it's too hard to keep hold of kids for the most part. For the most part, Fulani are still nomadic people, so it's hard to hang on to all of them. So child sponsorship is a difficult model in Nigeria, especially. So do you have any questions about the film or the ministry that I can tell you more about? Yeah. Those were folks who helped fund the film. So it cost a lot of money to make that film. And towards the end of the film production, we had a Kickstarter fundraiser and raised like $52,000 to finish the color editing and the sound editing for the film. And so the list of names primarily are people who donated and helped to fund the film. Yeah. And we just signed a production or distribution deal with a DVD company. So the film will come out on DVD soon and we'll be able to share it more easily. Yeah. So kidnapping is a profitable industry in Nigeria and a common concern and a danger, especially for Christians and white people or anyone who appears to have money. But no one was convicted for Phyllis's kidnapping, but there was a man at the time who was opposing Phyllis's work and the Fulani people specifically. And so just through knowing people who knew that man, they concluded that there was one man particularly who was hired to have Phyllis killed. So the goal of her kidnapping was to have her killed, and they delivered her to this witch doctor camp where they were going to accomplish that purpose and get a small amount of money for her body, for her parts. But the Lord led Phyllis to an alternative, and praise the Lord, they were willing to pursue another option. So to kill her, yeah, to stop the work that she was doing that benefited so greatly the Fulani people specifically. Yeah. I don't think she fears anything. She is the most faithful person I've ever met. She has faith for things that are bigger than I've ever dreamed about. So I know it's a reality, and it's part of the danger of living in Nigeria and working in Nigeria. But it's not something that she fears because of this incredible work that the Lord has given us. And so the Lord continues to give her safety and ability. And we have an armored vehicle that she and our team travel in. They travel with armed guards at all times. And the roads are really dangerous, not just because of like the roads, can have holes the size of Volkswagens and be difficult to travel in, but there can be kidnappers and robbers and roadblocks and things too. So very dangerous place to travel in. And our work is all over Nigeria. So I have an email coming out on the 15th. So if you're not signed up to get our emails, you can sign up at the table in the foyer. But you can see on that map that our work is really all over Nigeria, and the travel to different schools and reserves is it's the most dangerous part of our work. And we're praying about someday the Lord providing a plane that would allow Phyllis and our team and other school superintendents to fly to churches and schools in Nigeria and avoid the roads. She's 82. Yeah. And so she's a tall, skinny, old, white, blonde lady who the Lord has just paved a way for her in Nigeria to have favor with Nigerians from farmers all the way up to the president. We've nearly had an audience with the president this year. He invited us to come, and then there was some political upheaval in the nation, and she didn't get to meet with him that week, but we were able to build excuse me, a pamphlet documenting all of our work. So he did get to see that. There's a fellow who works in his office who's cousins with a guy that we work with. So we have this tenuous connection with the president's office, but he knows about our work. He's very familiar with the things that we've done. And we have a lot of government partnerships through grazing reserves. The government has seen some of those models and agreed that that is a possible solution to this land conflict, and they've begun to set aside land in every state in Nigeria for these grazing reserves. So that's a way that we're working with the government, and we also partner with schools. A lot of our schools are government schools that we manage, or we partner with the school in some cases with the government to manage that school. So we have a lot of communication with the government officials who are in education. And we also have healthcare clinics, and I know at least one of those is a sanctioned, approved government building, but it's our building that we maintain, and then we pay for nurses and medicines and things like that. So pretty incredible government partnerships so far. And one of the fellows on the video was the previous governor, and he is working with us now in the land development in the current reserve that we're developing now, which is in Ogun State. So we're taking him with us, and I can't remember what his title is now, but we have some really incredible partnerships in Nigeria. How long do they stay in school? Boy, that's a big question. Their years are similar to ours. They have breaks, but each year they move up a grade. They start in primary schools and progress through to secondary school, and then go on to college, kind of like our kids do in America. If they are able to stay in school. So that's more difficult in Nigeria than it is here. In America, we just expect kids to go to school when they're 5 and stay until they graduate. And I don't know, I guess in America, we expect them to go to college, or we encourage them as that changes in America, but it's not like that in Nigeria. A lot of people can't afford to go to school. There aren't schools in all the areas. So Nigeria does have like a nationwide school program, but it's slow to grow. And so as they continue to develop this nationwide education effort, there's a lot of room for us to come alongside and support them. And there's a lot of kids in Nigeria who are unschooled or not in school. Phyllis just posted on Facebook an update from an education liaison who came to us from Kaduna State, which is in the north, and reported that there were 28 teachers and 10,000 pupils. And they were asking, they have government schools, and it's not a state where we have any schools yet. They were asking, how can you partner with us, and what can you do? And I don't know what we can do, but I guarantee you that Phyllis is praying about that right now. And I expect that we'll begin to partner with them. We currently support them with teacher training and school supplies, but we don't have any Schools for Africa partner schools in Kaduna State yet. Yep. So the Fulani are not contained only in Nigeria. They're a big people group who are scattered across all of those northwestern nations. So, the Fulani that Phyllis knows and loves are for them. I'm thinking through where he's lived and families we love, are in Nigeria for the most part, but they do move about depending on the political upheaval and uprisings in certain areas. When Phyllis was kidnapped, the Magodi is called in the movie, had to move his family to a different location because he was being attacked at that time. No, the schools stay, but sometimes schools close for a period of time. We have a grazing reserve in Bobi State, and our Bobi grazing, it's not Bobi State, but our grazing reserve, Bobi Grazing Reserve, has 7 schools. But recently this year, they had come under attack from some rebels in the area that had a pretty strong presence. And so we had to close the schools for a matter of months. And eventually the army came in and kind of cleaned that up, and it's safer now. And families feel safe to send their kids back to school and for teachers to stay. But it did decrease the number of pupils from, I just looked at those numbers yesterday, from like 700 kids in the 7 schools down to around 428 kids. So that definitely affects our schools. Yeah. Go ahead. Okay. So sorry. Yeah. It is. And Nigeria is one of the most dangerous places to minister in when it comes to kidnapping. It's a tender, touchy subject. Yeah, it's just very difficult. But I can't help but praise God for the ransom that came for Phyllis's life and the work that she's done in Nigeria since she was ransomed and rescued has been remarkable. Yeah. 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 I think that's one of the most beautiful messages of this film, is that there are times in our lives, maybe in your life even now, when we have such a great fear or something that blocks us from the purpose that God gave us and created us for, and that God is completely capable of rolling those stones out of our life or rolling those fears away that block us from fulfilling the purpose and destiny that God created us for. He's a mighty God. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was in the Kogi Grazing Reserve at that time when there were bandits in that area. Yep. Yep. Right. Right. They were finally released for a small amount of money. It was a nurse and a teacher and one other person. I can't remember who, but they were held for several days and beaten and released. Yeah. So we have certainly increased security, and that's a world that we don't live in here in America, but it's something that Phyllis has to deal with on a daily basis. They have armed gunmen and security guards that we hire. Each school, most schools have security guards as just part of our paid staff now. Yeah, keep our babies safe. And education is one of the ways that we're addressing this anti-Fulani sentiment that's so prevalent in Nigeria. So we're putting them in uniforms, which is a great equalizer of shepherds and farmers and bankers' kids. And I think Phyllis says in the film they laugh together and they learn together and play together, and it teaches them that Fulani people are just like us and just like other Nigerians, not an unknown fear or someone to be afraid of or to look down on. Yeah. I'm surprised this year to learn about the extent of this anti-Fulani sentiment in Nigeria. And I was telling Kathy, I Googled anti-Fulani sentiment and was really surprised to find Wikipedia articles and other articles about groups of people in Nigeria who target Fulani. Like we've experienced in America, the kinds of prejudices that we had, 50 or 60, 80 years ago now. They're experiencing that still in Nigeria. It's shocking. Yeah. Well, I have a video that I want to share with you from Phyllis. As projects grow, she's having a more difficult time traveling back to America. I'm sure it has nothing to do with her age. But she did send a video that I want to share with you now, and I don't mind telling you, it makes me laugh every time because I asked Phyllis to send me a video that I could use at churches like yours who support us, and she sent it about a week before I started my tour, and there are some Nigerians speaking, and not everyone can understand them speaking, so I had to learn to subtitle that video in like a week. And right in the middle of the film, you can hear off camera someone flushes the toilet, and you can hear the toilet flushing. And so I had to learn how to edit out the background noise and stuff, and it was a frantic week, but it makes me smile every time. So enjoy this quick video, and then I'll come back up and close us.
Pastor and my partners in ministry. We're so happy to have this opportunity to talk to you about our work in Nigeria. Let me tell you who we are. My name is Phyllis Sawyer. I'm the Director of Schools for Africa, which is an NGO opening schools for children in this country. Sitting next to me is Superintendent John Raji. He is the superintendent of the Northern Nigeria Free Methodist Conference in Nigeria, and his wife, Josephine. Not only have John and Josephine worked together with me and Schools for Africa, they have been managing 7 schools on the Bobi Grazing Reserve in Niger State. And now another big responsibility is coming, and he has agreed to be the Assistant Director of Schools for Africa so that we can carry this workload together, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
So our mission in Nigeria is to bring a strong Christian education to as many children as we possibly can for the sake of peace.
Yes.
Schools for Africa has 13 schools now, and we thank God for Christian teachers who are doing a great work in the schools.
Yes.
Our mission is to bring peace. The Bible says, peacemakers who sow in peace will reap a harvest of righteousness.
Yes.
And we take that verse very seriously. And we believe that God will answer our prayer and give us those righteous believers among the Fulani and among other tribes as well.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes, also recently, due to the loss of ICCM sponsorship in Nigeria, 8 schools have been left stranded without any financial support. And 3 of these schools are in the South Central Conference of the Free Methodist Church Nigeria. 2 schools are in the Pioneer Conference of the Free Methodist Church Nigeria. And 3 of these schools are also in the Northern Conference of the Free Methodist Church Nigeria. As a school, the School for Africa, who is concerned about the education of children in Nigeria, we are not willing that the schools of ICCN should be closed down because of the withdrawal of sponsorship. Therefore, 100 of children's education will come to an end. So, School for Africa have been asked to help, and we have agreed to do so.
One such school is Hope Academy in Moro. It's one of the all schools established by Free Methodist Church for Fulani children. Myself and my husband, Superintendent John, we are more the first teachers of the school. Yesterday, at a special meeting held at the Moro with the school board, management, and the support, financial support, school were handed over to Superintendent Reverend John in partnership with the School for Africa. This is a great responsibility and joy which we wanted to share in this joy.
It's a huge responsibility and a joy. But we need to ask for some help. And so we would like to ask you, Pastor, if you and your congregation would be willing to adopt one of these 8 Free Methodist schools which have been left stranded. And what I mean by adopting that school is that you would be totally involved in running the school. You would help us to pay the teachers' salaries. We would send you all of the information about that particular school, pictures of the teachers, pictures of the children. You would totally be immersed in their heart, and they would be immersed in your heart. And it would be a great blessing to the children in Nigeria. So thank you for considering this. Thank you. We love you.
Very much. We love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cracks me up. So in the video, Phyllis and Superintendent John and Josephine mentioned that Schools for Africa took on 8 new schools in June. The schools lost their funding and the doors were closing forever. And Schools for Africa, Phyllis brought this to the board, and the board prayed for a month to try and discern what the Lord wanted us to do about the schools. And we felt like the Lord was asking us to take on the schools. Despite the financial challenges, we were obedient, and we've taken on the administration and the funding of those schools, but we do need help. So it costs $6,000 each month to fund the educations of these 1,600 kiddos attending the schools. And we would love to have your monthly support in helping to cover the cost of the schools. Schools for Africa regularly receives large financial donations throughout the year, and that blesses us so much to build new schools and clinics, but regular monthly support helps us know that we can cover our bases before we move on to new projects. So we do have a matching challenge right now through the end of 2022. Any new recurring monthly donations will be matched dollar for dollar. So if you are interested in signing up to support us monthly, I can do that with you today, or grab a prayer card and you can go on our website and sign up there as well. If you're not signed up for emails, you can do that at the table as well. And we appreciate your prayer support very much. I mentioned the roads and some of the other dangers of ministering in Nigeria. It is a dangerous place for our team to be, but what we see the Lord doing makes it worth all the sacrifice and time. So I've said many times already this weekend that having such a front row seat to see what the Lord is doing in the lives of the Fulani people has been so humbling and shocking. And I need to change my expectation to meet the great and many things that he has done. So I should quit being shocked at the many things that he has done, because he just continues to provide for the Fulani people in the most miraculous and beautiful ways. So thank you, church, so much for having me with you today. Thank you, Pastor Tim, for allowing us to come. And Tom and Kathy, thank you so much. Tom, do you want to come up and close, or can I pray for us? I would be so pleased. So, Father God, we do thank you that we can be together this morning and praise your name in worship and song. And Lord, we thank you for the work that you're doing here at this church, in this community, and around the world. Your provision is great, and we thank you so much for being with us. We praise your name, Jesus. Be with us today as we go. Amen. God bless you all. God bless you online. Have a great day.